Good morning. Good morning. Welcome home. Finally, a beautiful spring day as we enter the last week of spring, not the last day of spring, as I inadvertently mentioned it to someone. We have some notices this morning before we begin.
Good morning, everybody. Well, the Women's Fellowship are having their Christmas function on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 27th. So I expect you all to be there. And we're going to have lovely Christmas treats. So please do come. And if you haven't already given your little package, we're collecting for the mission, toiletries, lollies, whatever you can afford. All right, be lovely and you bring them along on Wednesday. Much appreciated. And it starts at 2 o'clock. And all you men are invited as well. Thank you.
I'm just keeping everybody up with what's going on with the hall. The proposed start date for the strengthening the hall is Monday week, the 2nd of December. The contract between Feldspar as our building agents and the church is with head office, but they do take 2 to 3 weeks to review the contract. I only found that out, but it is there, and the contract works insurance, which I've been granted that it must be in place, is apparently becoming in place, so we're piece by piece we're getting there. So if the work doesn't start on the 2nd, it should start on the 9th at the worst. But we're in the hands of our head office and the legal team reviewing the contract at the moment. On a positive note, we now have 93 subscribers to our YouTube channel. Now, last time I mentioned, I've only had about 17. So suddenly we've got, there's people that actually, I don't know if they watch it or not, but they have said they want to subscribe. They regularly get the output from what Bruce and I put out every week. So the number of people watching is significantly, possibly anyway, going well beyond the number that actually physically attend church every week. And we're getting well over 60 people viewing the services each week. So it's just quite amazing how that's grown. So that's quite a positive thing for what we're trying to do. And if you haven't watched it recently, Bruce has been working on getting the words to the hymns actually appearing during the service. So again, if any of you feel like watching the service and just letting us know what you think, we haven't had much feedback on whether people. We've had a bit saying people quite like it, so we're trying to improve all the time. And no word on the beans, sorry. Mr. Vithel's taking a long time to find some whatever he needs to actually go ahead with that work. But anyway, we are working on all these little projects bit by bit. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, we're trying to get the link to the online service into the bulletins so people will be able to access it more easily. But the reason I'm up here is that Helen Watson White came to see me just before the service, and there's a lot of notices in the bulletin, and one of them that she's particularly interested in is printed very small, in very small type, which is the Treaty Principles Bill, and so she has printed it out in big type and put her email on the top of this document. So if you want a copy of it that you can possibly read more easily, then email her and you'll be able to get it, or read it over coffee. So I'll leave this on the table as in the foyer. Thank you.
Good morning. The Dunedin Star Singers, who practice here every Tuesday night, they're having a Christmas concert at St Mary's Church in Losville. That's going to be next Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Admission is either by a donation to the food bank or money which they will give to Caritas. Thank you. It should be a very good concert, although I won't be there, but it would be good to support them because they pay us regularly their rent and they're very good tenants. Thank you.
Good morning. Because I was on the doors this morning, I see all the people who sneak in, and we have the lovely quarter Cooper here sitting in the back. So welcome back into the congregation for the day. Paul, it's just lovely to see you.
No other notices? Well, this is a sign that I clearly don't do this often enough. The wonderful greeting that I was going to bring you from Seasons of Your Heart is still sitting on my desk. So my apologies for that. I am sure we will centre ourselves in other ways. But welcome to Nopo, Kia ora, kia koutou. God be with you. Hold hands, people of God in love. Bind our hearts together in God's grace. We light this candle to remind us of the light of God's love, the warmth of God's welcome, and our faith in the ever-presence of God. So together we say, welcome to our place, welcome to worship, welcome in the name of our living God. Amen. Joy Cowleys is a name that will crop up a little later in the service, but from one of her books of Psalms, Words for Our Beginning. May the mystery of God enfold us, may the wisdom of God uphold us, may the fragrance of God be around us, may the brightness of God surround us, may the wonder of God renew us, may the loving of God flow through us, may the peace of God sweep within us, may the moving of God bring us peace. Come, let us worship God. Let us sing together Shirley Murray's hymn, God of the Bible. In the first verse, God of the Bible, God in the Gospel. Hope seen in Jesus, hope yet to come. You are our centre, daylight or darkness, freedom or prison. You are our home. As we begin this day together, may we sense God's presence with us, within us, and among us. May we hear God's word spoken or in the stillness. May we seek God as God seeks us, as God draws us in and holds us near. May God confirm in us the love by which we should live. May the gentle love of God strengthen us in our weakness, and God's spirit of peace still our confusion and ease our doubt. Here this morning, I have to wonder at the mercy of David Pulteney's sense of humour. Because not only for the second year running now, has David invited me to preach on what is known as Christ the King Sunday. Christ as King being a notion I have some difficulty with, even from a theological point of view. But this year, this Sunday, the last in November, is one that all good Presbyterians and those of Scottish stock traditionally recognise as St Andrew's Day. It's actually November the 30th, but the last Sunday in November is when we recognise. So getting a Presbyterian to preach in a Methodist church on the day we recognise St Andrew's Day is at least a little risky. We have been warned. My paternal grandparents immigrated to New Zealand from Scotland in the early 1900s. My father and his siblings were brought up in an incredibly strong, strict, and decidedly dour Scottish Presbyterian environment. Sunday meals were always prepared the day before on Saturday because there was to be no cooking on the Sunday. There was no conversation on a Sunday, and the only reading allowed in the house was the Bible, silently in your bedroom. How I ever became a Presbyterian minister defeats me. But I did. And for 5 years I was minister at St Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Palmerston North. Liberal in its theology, as I was progressively becoming, yet holding fast to the Scottish heritage from which it was named. I love organ music, even though organ music had historically proved to be one of the most divisive aspects of Scottish Presbyterianism, the division between the old kirk and the new, depending on how you viewed the so-called evil box of whistles. St Andrews had a wonderful pipe organ. It had been gifted by a good and clearly wealthy friend of my father's, Winston Young, in memory of his wife, Eileen. Except that at the time Winston gifted it, Eileen was very much alive. Indeed, she was large as life, and she took great pleasure for a number of years after her women's bridge club had played bridge and imbibed a little gin, inviting her bridge club members up into the choir loft to see what she delightfully termed her memorial organ. I loved the organ. I loved the way our choir master and organist had total control over it. The way in which he chose the introit, the choral reflection, the exit, according to his whim, rather than anything I might suggest based on the day's readings. I loved our organ every Sunday, except one, annually. St Andrew's Sunday, the last in November, the Sunday when St Andrew's invited participation from the Palmerston North Highlands Pipe Band. The organ introit was replaced by the skirl of bagpipes as minister and Bible were piped loudly into the church. Representatives of the Palmerston North Highland Pipe Band read the scripture readings for the day, and as an annual piece de resistance, at the conclusion of the service, the congregation would dutifully stay on, listening as the organist and the pipe band endeavoured to accompany one another. Two observations. Firstly, bagpipes were never designed to be played in an enclosed space. On a Scottish foggy moor, yes. Inside a church, no. And secondly, despite the best intentions and best endeavours of all who have subsequently tried, pipe organs and bagpipes were never designed to be played together. Hence, for those of us with, despite whatever Scottish blood remains in our veins, for those of us with any musical sense, St Andrew's Day at St Andrew's Church was, let's say, a somewhat conflicting experience, and one that on both my last Sunday and my last St Andrew's Day as minister there, I couldn't help but pass comment on. My final words to the congregation gathered at St Andrew's that November Sunday were to commend those who would stay on to listen to the combined if inevitably discordant tones of our pipe organ and the massed assembled bagpipes. All there listening with tears in their eyes. Some, as I observed, as a result of that deep welling of Scottish identity and their love of the pipes, others simply from the pain of it all. And as of old, St Andrew probably did hear it, so let us sing a good Presbyterian hymn. Jesus calls us, o'er the tumult. Jesus calls us o'er the tumults of our life's wild, restless sea. Day by day his sweet voice sounded, saying, Christian, follow me.
As you can see in your bulletin, today's readings, the first one is Psalm 132, verses 1 to 11. And I'm reading from the New International Version. O Lord, remember David and all the hardships he endured. He swore an oath to God and made a vow to the mighty one of Jacob. I will not enter my house or go to my bed. I will allow no sleep to my eyes, nor slumber to my eyelids, till I find a place for the Lord, a dwelling for the mighty one of Jacob. We heard it in Ephrathah. We came upon it in the fields of Jah. Let us go to his dwelling place. Let us worship at his footstool. Arise, Lord, and come to your resting place, you and the ark of your might. May your priests be clothed with righteousness. May your saints sing for joy. For the sake of David, your servant, do not reject your anointed one. The Lord swore an oath to David, a sure oath that he will not revoke. One of your own descendants I will place on the throne. And then John 18:33 to 37. Pilate then went back inside the palace and summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Do you think I'm a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you've done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You're right in saying I'm a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me."
Christ the King Sunday. And as I've mentioned, I'll be honest that of all the images that we have of Christ, this Jesus who became Christ, the notion of Christ as King is probably the one I sit least comfortably with. And so in putting my thoughts together for what I might say this morning, I went back and reflected on what I had to say here earlier this year on Palm Sunday. Jesus in that week before the Jewish Passover, riding into Jerusalem on a donkey, we're told. The crowds waving palm branches, others spreading out their cloaks ahead of him. We talk about Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem, an entry befitting a king, a ruler. But as I suggested then, that story represented pure parody, because across town another triumphal entry was taking place, that of the Roman Emperor, the Roman Governor, Pontius Pilate, also entering Jerusalem with his own parade. A parade into Jerusalem that took place that same week every year in an effort to draw attention away from the Passover celebrations that drew hundreds, if not thousands, of Jewish faithful to Jerusalem that time each year. On one side of town, the Roman governor in a parade led by captives that had chained together, captured weapons and treasures, all of Rome's senators and magistrates, Caesar's heralds, the Roman guard in full regalia, and Pontius Pilate in his four-horse chariot. And on the other side of town, Jesus riding on a donkey, as the crowd names him the blessed and true King of Israel. Literally days later. And here is where our reading this morning picks up the story. Jesus is brought before Pontius Pilate, before the very man Jesus' own entry into Jerusalem had parodied days earlier. Had Pilate heard of Jesus' entry into Jerusalem days earlier? We have to wonder. In any case, Pilate asks Jesus, "Are you a king?" "You say that I am," Jesus responds. So too had those gathered for the Passover days earlier, the blessed and true King of Israel. For many, the fulfillment of God's promise to David, "I will make one of your descendants a king, and he will rule after you." And so the story of this Jesus who became Christ, who was promised to be king, ahead of his crucifixion, is named king, is recognised as king. Even though Jesus appears to distance himself from such an epithet. And this moment, this movement in the Christ story, today we recognise in what has come to be known as this Christ the King Sunday. Let me unpack that a little further. The story of Jesus, the story of Christ, the drama that is that story, is indeed a series of movements. And today we recognise what is in many ways the final movement of that story, where Christ is named, where Christ is crowned as King. And we do so on the final Sunday of the Church's liturgical year. Next Sunday, the drama begins all over again, the first Sunday of Advent. For that reason, this Sunday, the culminating, the crowning movement in our liturgical year, gives us the opportunity to reflect, to look back on the year that has gone before we turn our eyes again towards the coming of Jesus Christ. Ted Loader, in his wonderfully titled collection of meditations, Guerrillas of Grace, talks about how at times he trembles on the edge of a maybe, a first time, a new thing, a tentative start. And he says, the wonder of it lays its finger upon my lips. But this moment, this movement, is in a sense not a first time for us. Or is it paradoxically another first time? A time to indeed take a moment to look back in order to more faithfully look forward. Te tiro whakamori, kōkiri whakamoa. The Māori proverb, the Māori whakatauki, that encourages us to look back and reflect in order to move forward. And the psalmist's words to God in our reading, Lord, do not forget David, do not forget all the hardships he endured. It's been my pleasure and my privilege to have crossed paths at a number of points over the years with a wonderful Joy Kelly, who even better, though I have yet to visit her, is now retired. One of her numerous retirements, I would have to say, has now retired to Dunedin. She's living over at Sunset. I read her children's books to my children. I've drawn many times upon her prayers and reflections and worship as I did this morning. When she attended a high school reunion in Palmerston North years ago, we even had the greatest privilege of having her speak with the children at St Andrews that Sunday morning. She sat on the steps of the church, surrounded by children, and together they made up a story on the spot, with her leading it. So it was a joy. It was wonderful to read in the ODT a couple of months back that Dame Joy had in fact moved to Dunedin, and of course she published yet another children's book. But the article in the ODT also touched briefly upon Joy's life, and even though the word itself wasn't used, her faith. She talked about death as a birthing experience. At one level, surely it doesn't get any more paradoxical than that. And yet, at another level, is that not what this last Sunday of the liturgical year is about? The need for one year to end before another can begin. Life, Joy said in the article, life is a birthing process. She said, I have long since accepted that at this time of my life, this is when the body goes into labour to give birth to the soul. And it's a positive for me. One of the novels that I read of Joy's, and then in turn influenced some of my own subsequent writing about death and dying, was about this crusty old Scot who was dying of cancer. The novel was entitled The Growing Season. Our church calendar is seasonal, allowing 4 times of growth, times of reflection, of preparation, celebration, indeed encouraging this, encouraging us to utilise such times, such seasons, to immerse ourselves in them and the changing points of focus that they bring. For now, as we tremble at the edge of a maybe, for now as we end one liturgical year and stand at the edge of another, a time to reflect, and from here, a time to look forward yet again. Te rau whakamori, kokere whakamori. Looking back in order to move forward. So may it be. Amen. We stand and sing. Our life has its seasons, and God has the reasons why spring follows winter and new leaves grow. For there's a connection with our resurrection, that flowers will bud after frost and snow, so there's never a time to stop believing. There's never a time for hope to die. There's never a time to stop loving. These 3 things go on. Prayer for ourselves and for others. Let us pray. Come to us, God of peace. Come with your healing, reconciling power, that fear may be cast out by love, weapons replaced by trust, violence give way to gentleness. Come to us, God of love. Come that we may see you in the poor, the lonely, the rejected in our midst. Come that we might respond to them as your compassionate church. Come that we may see you in the people of every race, and commit ourselves to the hope that we can celebrate our life together in true community and justice. Come to us, God of hope. Come that we may put aside cynicism